create or how to make a synth lead track in your songs. I'm going to recreate one that I made in one of my songs right now using the Alchemy synth. So stock free synth in Logic. You can follow along with that if you want. In the description, you can download my production template for free if you want. So when I'm creating synth lead tracks, the first thing I look for is something that can really pop and be present, and that has to do with what you're playing over, right? So that's our instrumental we're playing over. There's already an arpeggiator synth. There's quite a heavy drum set, keys, and bass. I use Alchemy for almost every project. Do a mono synth because we want one note playing at one time. Pop, and let's do dark. And you can just kind of go through these and choose. I just go down, you know. You've all, that's kind of cool. You've all done this, kind of looking for sounds, and it takes a long time. If you're new here, please feel free to subscribe. I'm Charles Klein, singer, songwriter, and producer. I'm making videos to try and help you make music, make better music, and get that music heard. I kind of set it for 2 minutes mentally in my head. And if I haven't found one, that's cool. I just picked the best one that I like during that time. And I think that's how I found this one too. So let's go up and actually look at what it was. So I actually went to leads first, and then I just went through the first few leads and I went down to this crispy glide lead. Alchemy is cool because not only does it have these preset sounds, but then you can dig in on the presets with these boxes here. I really like the sound of this lead here. It's got, it is crispy, right? It's called crispy, but it has a lot of like that distortion on top. Distortion can be really good distortion or saturation to add on top of an instrument or a lead to give it that harmonics. So you can always be adding, on the left here, distortion, and distort any one of these. I usually use just the regular distortion, and then you set the drive and where the tone of the distortion. So play around with these knobs on your leads and it will give it a different feel. So that's the first thing I look for in a lead, finding something that can be present. You don't really want a lead that has too much delay or reverb unless you're going for that vibe, but typically a lead will be up front in the mix just like a vocal is. So the more reverb and delay you add, it's just going to be stuck back in the mix. Then when you find the right sound, you can be using EQ to shape the sound. I used an EQ here to cut a lot of those low frequencies off. And I also added a bit of a tremolator, giving it a bit of a rhythm here, a pulsating effect. This is a multi-band compressor. I dipped a bit of those harsh frequencies that are coming up here. Because this synth is borderline tough on the ears if you don't take those down, I actually did automate a bit of EQ here when we got back into the third chorus, because you don't necessarily, if you have a lead that carries on with a vocal part, that's when they can really fight. So choose one that's going to take the priority. EQ here. Now watch what happens. So between this 500 and 2000 space, I'm dipping that like 2 dB. That will leave more space for the vocal. Okay, now how do we actually find a part to play? That also depends on the instrumental you are playing over and the tempo of your song too. In this part, I had an arpeggiator, a synth arpeggiator here. So I didn't want to have a synth lead that was too busy over top of those arpeggiators, which is why I just settled on something simple that isn't really moving a lot. If we open up the MIDI data, there's not much happening, right? There's main notes and then transition notes. For example, we have this note. I'm just gonna lower that down a bit. Transition note. You can get away with something simple like this because the synth has that distortion and texture to it, also a bit of delay, so it feels longer and bigger. But with the tremolator, it has rhythm itself, right? If you took off all these effects and maybe you changed it to like more softer synth, this kind of rhythm wouldn't really work. See, this is much more annoying just because it's kind of flat. putting the tremolator and this kind of stuff back on. It gives it much more movement when we have such a simple progression. Like I said at the beginning, recap, it comes down to the sound you choose. Set yourself a mental timer for 2 or 3 minutes. Look for a sound. If you don't find one, choose the best one you did find during that little time limit. And then if you still don't like it later, go back and choose another one. I rarely make and design my own synths in like Serum, more tweaking already preset sounds using Alchemy or using, for example, the Juno 6 is like a classic synth that you would have heard on so many records. This is the digital version of it, and then there's presets. And here, Synth Lead, you have all these presets, you can choose one, and then you can edit certain things on the synth, and I'm more inclined to do this kind of thing. Hope to see you in the next live session happening next Monday or next Friday all the time. So see you then.